One day during the summer holidays, Yamada Kusuke, a first-year student, came to school to take supplementary swimming lessons. He feels so unfortunate to take them just because he came down with a cold on that day when there were actual swimming classes. Suddenly a voice seems like a fresh breeze of air in this summer heat, and that belongs to the sassy Miyashita, who calls out to him saying that even she is here to join him as she came down with cold on the actual class day. She wonders whether Yamada is the only boy who is taking classes. A baffled Yamada cannot believe his luck that day, as Miyashita has always been her idol and he used to stare at her from quite a distance. Suddenly, a wave of nervousness strikes him. Miyashita exclaims that they both are quite at luxury that day to have the pool all by themselves. Yamada scans at Miyashita's shapely curves and breaks into a cold sweat, as those are never visible in a school uniform. Soon the nonchalant PE teacher Kawashima Yumiko urges them to get over this rapidly as the heat is taking up on her and she has a lot to do. With the sound of a whistle, both individuals splash into the pool. However, after a few laps, Yamada pops out his head wearily. A flustered Kamishima yells at him not to stop as there is still 20 meters left. Yamada wails that he can't help it because he doesn't know how to swim. An irritated Kawashima comments that Yamada is pathetic and he must become like Miyashita. Yamada stares at Miyashita in awe as she pierces through the water like a fish. In no time Miyashita finishes her 200-meter quota. Kawashima asks Miyashita if she can check on Yamada and make sure he finishes up his lesson, as she remembers she has something important to do. While Miyashita is distracted shortly, Yamada grabs the opportunity and announces that he has already finished up 200 meters and they must take a break. Miyashita immediately catches what Yamada is up to and warns him not to cheat. Yamada tells her sheepishly that Kawashima doesn't have the slightest bit of interest in him. Miyashita decides to support him and plops into the water. She makes him swim towards her, and suddenly she splashes his head into the water, and Yamada catches Miyashita's enormous luscious melons swaying here and there along with the direction of water currents. Yamada ponders with dazzling eyes that if he could get such lovely lessons, he would take them no matter how many hours it takes. Unexpectedly, Miyashita's back hits the pool wall, and she cautions him to stop, but the latter's head collides with the massive cushions with a thud. A very awkward situation arises for both of them. After much toil, Yamada manages to complete his required 200 meters. An angelic Miyashita pulls him out gently to his great relief. Soon they chatter away easily while being perched on the edge of the pool waiting for Kawashima, who certainly didn't expect Yamada to finish that soon. Meanwhile, Yamada is still in a state of bewilderment because he cannot believe he is talking to Miyashita. After all, before this time he always shied away from her. He is hit by a bolt of lightning when Miyashita comments that she was kind of worried as Yamada always tended to avoid her earlier, so she was not sure whether they would get along. A flabbergasted Yamada blurts out that she is wrong. Suddenly, a stray beetle soars by, lands, and gets stuck between the mountains of flesh. A terrified Miyashita pleads with Yamada to pull out that tiny rascal as she is really afraid of it. A hesitant Yamada places his hand in between and out of his nervousness, instead of pulling out the beetle pushes it further. In sheer exasperation, Yamada tugs his hand further, while Miyashita makes those musical sounds. The situation is quite comical as both parties have swayed away from their main objective. Suddenly, a passerby inquires Yamada about his questionable actions. Not sure how to get out of this extremely uncomfortable situation, a frantic Miyashita pushes Yamada into the pool, and Yamada plops into the water while pulling Miyashita along with him. In this hysterical position, he accidentally tugs at Miyashita's swimwear, exposing her gigantic inflated balloons. His head comes in between those massive balls of hot hair, and the hapless guy is nearly stifled to death. Later, while panting heavily on the deck, Miyashita apologizes for her hasty decision, but Yamada consoles her that he is glad that no one witnessed that questionable tug of war. It is then a flushed Miyashita requests Yamada to keep all the day's happenings a secret. Yamada asks Miyashita if she can teach him to swim. Miyashita smiles encouragingly. A fun fair is thriving and Tomo is looking for someone. He ponders that the fair is jam-packed and he should have come some other time. Suddenly, a sultry bunny girl rushes and flings herself over Tomo. She twirls and shows off her bunny suit to Tomo's humiliation, who wonders with a flushed face whether it is an appropriate dress for the school festival. Suddenly, a timid young girl, Tsugumi, addresses the bunny girl as Hibari and requests her to be with her all the time. Hibari apologizes to her and explains that she got all excited when she spotted Tomo. Tomo notices that the boys around him are taking a keen interest in the twins. Tomo has known those twins for a long time and knows that although they have opposing personalities, they are always together. They live in his neighborhood and always consider him as their older brother. The peculiar thing is that the youngest of the twins always hid behind Hibari whenever she spotted Tomo, and the latter feels that the distance between them has widened with time. It was Hibari who invited Tomo to the fair that day. When he comments that Tsugumi is wearing a rather fancy outfit for the festival, she immediately makes an excuse and runs away. Soon a sumptuous spread is put in front of Tomo, who is quite overwhelmed to see so much food. Unexpectedly, Hibari jumps over him and force feeds him. Poor Tomo yelps with discomfort, while the other guys also long for the same kind of service. All the time she presses her assets close to his body while trying to ingest some dessert. Tsugumi is watching the whole scene from behind the curtains. She suddenly pushes Hibari away and drags Tomo along. On reaching a safer distance from Hibari, Tomo heaves a sigh of relief. Tsugumi explains that she saved him because of her own selfishness, because it seemed to her that they both were going for a lip lock. Hibari displays so much hysteria that her blouse strips open, revealing her juicy twins to Tomo's complete surprise. A flushed Tsugumi guesses that Tomo might be hating him for having such large melons because she has noticed his discomfort while encountering those of Hibari. For this reason, she even tried to camouflage herself to avoid standing out in the crowd. A compassionate Tomo covers Tsugumi with a coat and advises her with a flushed face that it is not good for her body to wear undersized undergarments. Out of emotion, Tsugumi throws herself on Tomo, with her body tightly pressed against him, when suddenly an enraged Hibari barges in, condemning both for abandoning her, hiding and flirting behind her back. She decides to join them, to Tsugumi and Tomo's chagrin. It's high school's summer holidays, and that day is Manaka's first day as a part-timer at a coffee shop that a friend introduced her to. Manaka just adores the work uniform, and also Manaka wants to use her wages to buy a birthday present for her father. On reaching the premises, Manaka is astonished to see her friend Yuina wearing a skimpy outfit while working. Manaka exclaims that she should have worn a proper uniform. Yuina drops a bolt on Manaka that this is the beach house's uniform. Now Manaka is overwhelmed to see such a high level of exposure, so she complains to Yuina that she should have mentioned this before. Yuina then naughtily places the tray under Manaka's cushions and urges her to change in order to show off that gorgeous body. Manaka is quite uneasy wearing that suggestive outfit because already she is going through a huge melon complex and now everyone would be able to see them. However, at this time she cannot turn her back as it would make Yuina look bad, and also her father will think she is utterly useless. When she comes up dressed in that bikini, Yuina stares at her intently, making Manaka further edgy. Yuina apologizes for bringing the wrong size because the uniform seems very brief on her enormous assets. However, Manaka hasn't told her the correct size because of her humiliation, so lets out a feeble wail that she is still growing. Yuina teases her some more, and then the opening time begins. The girls get busy while serving different customers. Manaka moves quickly in order to avoid peering gazes. However, Yuina notices that as Manaka moved swiftly, her melons swayed wildly here and there. Yuina asks Manaka to bring a huge parfait to a table. Manaka is relieved that things are sailing smoothly, and here she can easily collect money until the straps of her upper uniform snap open out of the blue. Immediately her bouncy balloons pop out and the parfait spills and settles all over them. The customer is getting impatient, so a hysterical Manaka presents that extra large parfait to him with a very unique presentation. One day Yu is looking for a book in the upper section of the shop when some fray kid passes by in such excitement that he collides with Yu while running merrily towards his mother. Yu thinks that like always he experienced bad luck, but just to avoid that he has a charm that avoids bad fortune. That charm is his childhood friend Oshi, who is 2 years older than him. The thing that entices him most about her is the huge wreck set on her front, and strangely if he fondles those mushy marshmallows he avoids bad fortune. However, he hasn't met her for a while now. Soon the shopkeeper presents him with a ticket for the shopping district's lottery. Yu knows that Oshi is busy with her university, and he must also worry about his upcoming exams. Unexpectedly he meets Oshi, who tells him that she is here because she wants to join a circle. Yui remembers those dreadful lewd events where they take newcomers out for a drink. Oshi excitedly tells him to try out the lottery since he has gotten the ticket. She adds that the first prize is a pair ticket for an onsen. Yu looks at her closely and feels that Oshi has gotten hotter somehow. Also due to summer, she is wearing fewer clothes. Yuo's face gets hotter, and he has this sudden urge. He immediately places his face between those luscious melons and squeezes them hard to Oshi's astoundment. On a horrific realization, he immediately straightens up and apologizes for the misunderstanding. Yet again he gets weaker on his knees and performs his ritual all over, freaking Oshi out completely, who screams at him for joking around her. Even the surrounding jaywalkers glance at them suspiciously. And then the comedy of errors begins when Yu falls over a busty maiden dragging another one along with him. To add the cherry on top, the lottery ticket flies away from his pocket and lands in Yuzi's eyes, making her trip on something. She immediately falls over Yu with her cushions completely over Yu's face. The ticket somehow reaches the lottery counter and the man announces that Yui has won the first prize. An elated Yui asks Oshi to go to onsen with her, and the latter doesn't mind tagging along. A little boy Yuyuta is abruptly awoken as feels something heavy on himself, and his eyes pop open when he finds a maid named Tamo trying to wake him up by placing her heavy melons on his chest. The aggravated Yuyuta scolds her that he has already told her not to enter his room. Tamo tells her woes to her fellow maids and asks whether Yuyuta hates her. The maids assure her that he is just a little shy, also he is a kid, but he acts like an adult as he doesn't want Tamo to come close to him, and hugging is completely forbidden. Still, Tamo feels that everyone around her doesn't like her, and they don't rely on her either. The maids disclose to Tamo that since she hasn't been here for too long, so she doesn't know anything. They tell her that Yuyuta lost his parents early on, and most of the fortunes were robbed by one of the relatives he trusts. What is left is this mansion and a little inheritance. Tamo feels sorry for Yuyuta, as at this age children should be pampered according to her, and she can totally buy his loneliness. Tamo can read his mind that Yuyuta is afraid to show any weaknesses because then he would be cheated again. A headstrong Tamo vows to pamper Yuyuta with all her might. Hilariously, one of the fellow maids wonders what Tamo might do because even if she tries sleeping with him, Yuyuta despises her waking him up. Also, if she becomes his lap pillow, then her pom-poms will crush him because he is too small. A maid advises the frantic Tamo to reverse her thinking. Later that night, when Yuyuta is trying to find her glasses, to his great unease, Tamo is present in front of him wearing a mere towel all set to give him a bath. Poor Yuyuta avoids looking at her enormous mountains while Tamo helps wash his back. Suddenly, the soap slips out of her hand and plops into the valley between the mountains. A hysterical Yuyuta yells at her for not pulling off her towel, so Tamo frantically shakes her mounds of flesh violently. Suddenly, the soap slips out, soars, and hits Yuyuta hard, knocking him backwards. He tearfully tells her that she keeps on doing unnecessary things, so he shouldn't have hired her in the first place. The next day, while sweeping the grounds, Tamo feels really bad and is certain that now Yuyuta must be hating her. Meanwhile, Yuyuta comes out of the house and feels some remorse on seeing Tamo. But whenever he looks at her, he remembers that embarrassing situation occurring last night. While he is thinking, a hysterical Tamo calls out to him, but an even more perturbed Yuyuta begins to run away from her. So when Yuyuta crawls through a narrow bush tunnel and heaves a sigh of relief on coming out from the other end undisturbed, only to hear panic-stricken noises. When he turns around, he finds a distraught Tamo stuck in the tiny bush hole while chasing Yuyuta. Still, Yuyuta helps her pull out, only to be knocked down and stifled by her heavy melons. Tamo is thoroughly humiliated and wails that she has failed miserably. She tells a perplexed Yuyuta that because of her assets, she always gets into trouble and is fired from everywhere she goes. She is certain that Yuyuta despises her a lot. Yuyuta assures her that he doesn't, but doesn't like it when she hugs him closely. He also apologizes for his harsh words and rude behavior last night. Full of emotions, a teary-eyed Tamo hugs Yuyuta again to his agitation. In the coming days, Tamo is still the same, never letting any opportunity go to hug her favorite Yuyuta-sama, but then Yuyuta proposes that they must only hold hands. A young boy narrates that he is playing his favorite king's game, and for some reason he is grabbing a melon of the girl he likes. It all happened when in the literature club, Sendu and Yagi are playing games, so when Sendu gets bored he decides to head home. Yagi stops him and says that she made up this whole club to kill time. If he goes home now, then they might be disbanded for lying and not doing any club activities. Sendu has no choice but to join that club since he can't do sports. Those who were found not to be in any club would have to accompany their PE teacher and sweat it out like youths. However, Sendu complains that he would rather go home than get cheated by Yagi. It is then another member, Himeno, pops in and apologizes for being late as her drama club practice dragged on for a little longer. A dazed Senjuo looks at Himeno and wonders why she is wearing such a weird outfit. Himeno explains that she didn't have time to change, so she is wearing the one from the drama practice. Yagi knows that now Sendu has no reason to go home, as she has called Himeno to join the club since there were only 2 of them. It is then Yagi grabs some used straws and suggests they play the Osama game. Himeno gets pretty excited. In this game, one has to obey the king's orders no matter how outrageous they are. However, Sendu is a little apprehensive because he is really terrified of going against her. Yagi asks everyone to draw out a straw. Sendu wishes she didn't draw out the king one. To his misery, Yagi does draw out the king's straw. Yagi pulls out Sendu's cell phone from his pocket and places it on Himeno's huge cushions. She then urges Sendu to pick up the phone with his own hands. Now the situation is quite embarrassing for both Himeno and Sendu, but Yagi threatens Himeno to stay silent or else she will reveal the reason why she called her to this club. Himeno encourages Sendu to perform his task, but seeing Sendu's hesitation, Yagi goes beyond and unbuttons Himeno's blouse to reveal everything that is underneath and places the phone in between the luscious melons. She warns that the task will get harder and harder if Sendu doesn't hurry. Sendu covers his eyes and reprimands Yagi, but the latter announces that the king's orders are absolute and there is no turning back. Sendu can see that Himeno is thoroughly humiliated, but something is keeping her off to protest. Suddenly Sendu has an idea, and he decides to perform the task blindfolded, so he squeezes a spot to find the hidden phone but fails. As a punishment, Yagi kicks him hard from behind, and he falls face down on Himeno's cushies, and the latter yelps in agony. An abashed Sendu quickly straightens up and apologizes, while a flushed Himeno assures him while buttoning up that it is her fault for screaming so loudly. Before starting round 2, Yagi asks Himeno to change behind the screen and assures her that she won't let Sendu peek at her. Himeno complies and goes behind the screen. Immediately Yagi tells Sendu that he must not miss the opportunity and take a sneak peek at Himeno. Sendu calls her a devil, but the devil hoists his phone in front of him and threatens that she will take all kinds of questionable pictures and post them in his name. A frantic Sendu reaches out for his phone but trips on an empty can. Unfortunately, he falls towards the screen, his head sliding inside, glancing at Himeno's delicacies. A humiliated Himeno tries to cover herself, and a flushed Sendu explains that it is all a misunderstanding and Yagi's doing. However, a wrathful Himeno slaps and thrashes him away to Yagi's bliss, who is enjoying the whole scene with relish. Later, a bruised Sendu is walking Himano home and explains the whole story to her. He then asks what Yagi meant when she threatened Himano to spill the reason she was there. In the flashback, Yagi knew that Himano had feelings for Sendu, so she offered to create an opportunity for Himano, and the latter agreed readily. At present, Himano refrains from spilling the beans to Sendu and assures him that she will tell him in the coming days for sure. Yuuma is thoroughly irritated when his next-door neighbor Yui calls him up for some errand on a lazy Saturday morning. He decides to give her his peace of mind for sure. When he angrily barges into her room, he is numb with surprise when he sees Yui wearing a bikini and tying up her straps. Fully abashed, he apologizes and shuts the door. Suddenly it dawns on him that he never noticed that her melons were so gigantic, as she always wore a uniform. It is then Yui calls out to him that he can finally enter. A frantic Yuuma is about to reprimand her when his eyes pop out at the revealing outfit Yui has adorned. Yui tells him that she is wearing a swimsuit. When Yui checks out his hesitation, she encourages Yuuma to look at her. Yuuma is puzzled as to why Yui is wearing a swimsuit. Yui explains that she wants him to pick up a swimsuit for her pool date. A humiliated Yuuma fumes at Yui as she always enjoyed teasing him. He decides to tell her off once he can make eye contact with her. So when Yui crosses her limits and begins to flaunt her assets in front of him, Yuuma loses his cool and yells at her that she must stop doing these kinds of things already, or he will start despising her. It is then Yui's mother informs her that she is home, and Yuuma begins to have a panic attack. Even though Yui is his childhood friend, what will her mother think when she sees both Yuuma and a near-bare Yui in a closed bedroom? Even Yui begins to fret as her mother begins to climb up the stairs. Suddenly Yui drags Yuuma into a closet and shut it behind her just when her mother enters her room. Her mother reprimands her for not replying even when she was in her room. She then asks that the shoes lying outside seem to belong to Yuuma. Yui covers up sweatily and stutters that those might belong to Kazuki, her little brother's friend. Her mother asks Yui to change into something other than the swimsuit and then come down for some snacks. Her mother suggests that shouldn't she choose a cute type of swimsuit if she is going to use it for a date, and flustered Yui pushes her out of the room. Yuuma is curious about Yui's date, but he clenches his fist and thinks that he has nothing to do with it. Sensing silence, Yuuma decides to come out of the closet, only to be shocked again when he finds Yui undressing in front of him. A panic-stricken Yuuma reprimands her, but a calm Yui asks him whether he hates her. A distressed Yuuma begs her not to tease him again. But Yui is very serious because she doesn't want Yuuma to despise her. Yuuma peeks through the closet blinds and catches Yui flaunting her curves in front of him. Yuuma gets upset, so Yui tells him that she only does that in front of him only. Yuuma then inquires about the person she is dating, and Yui tells him that he is the one, and for this reason she wanted him to choose the suit for her. It dawns on Yuuma that Yui is in love with him. He ponders that if he doesn't confess to her about his feelings, then he won't be termed as a man. It is then he trips over and falls over Yui with a crash, with his hand on one of her soft buns. Yui's mother rushes upstairs on hearing the noise, barges into Yui's room, and leads out a deafening scream on seeing both Yui and Yuuma in a questionable state. Yuuma narrates that after this incident they had a special dish called osukehan to celebrate the special occasion. One day, a 17-year-old Tsugami asks his childhood friend Ruka, and asks for a once-in-lifetime favor. When a hesitant Ruka agrees, he would be asking her to wear a tight-fitted revealing dress for him at his place. Poor Ruka is embarrassed to the core as all her assets are oozing out from that ridiculous outfit. Tsugami explains that as a special effects lover, he bought that dress on a whim. He compliments Ruka that the dress looks amazing on her. He then describes how the dress forms wrinkles on the corners, as its tightness clings to her body, outlining her curves. He then asks Ruka to pose in a certain way that makes her a knockout. Tsugami's heart skips a beat when he glimpses at those juicy thighs and the angles of the ankles. Ruka is flushed but loves the way he is complimenting her. It is then he makes the quirkiest of the requests, that is, Ruka must flip her skirt. Ruka appears as if struck by a 1000-watt electric shock, but when Tsugami begs her with those puppy eyes, she is left with no option but to comply. A raunchy Tsugami immediately scans her lower body and comments that the undergarment is part of the suit's design, and no wonder they are fine if it was exposed during the action scenes. That night Ruka is still pondering about Tsugami, that it's been a while since she has seen him smiling like that. She wonders if it means that he only loved the suit and wasn't looking at her. Suddenly she finds something on the internet and exclaims that with this item Tsugami will be happy as well as concentrate on her as well. With this idea she adds the item to her cart. Another day Tsugami is at his place puzzled as Ruka has called him to wait for her. She is heading his way. Out of the blue Ruka appears wearing an eerie minuscule bombshell outfit in which her curves are near to bare. Ruka is heartbroken when Tsugami tells her that her outfit is not his taste. A delighted Chika shrieks in excitement when she sees Rin and comments that she is looking very cute. However, an overwhelmed Rin is speechless looking at her bare outfit and wonders why she has to wear such a frivolous outfit. Chika asks her what is she so embarrassed about, plus they have a deal. Chika reminds Rin that she has promised to become her model so that Chika can realize her dream, which is to become a designer. Chika didn't expect the outfits to be that cute. However, Rin is very uncomfortable as she is the only sister among all her brothers who are a part of a kendo club. A remorseful Rin thinks that she shouldn't have promised Chika despite her being her friend. Also, she thinks that Chika is being unfair using friendship as a means of trade. Chika insists Rin let her take some photos. A flustered Rin yells at Chika for being a fiend demon. Chika reminds her that she doesn't want to hear this from someone who got lured by just a single cream puff. Rin reasons that no one can refuse them since only 10 are produced per day. A delightful Chika lures her further and says that if Rin lets her take photos, then she can have as many as she wants. Chika reasons that there are not many girls who have that kind of body that suits those types of sultry outfits. Chika does all kinds of bizarre stuff to make Rin relax, namely fondling her exorbitant melons. However, Rin thinks she is fat, and there is nothing spectacular about her body. Rin admits that Chika's clothes are kind of cute and refreshing, but sometimes she wonders whether she is wearing them backwards. Chika replies that she has created these clothes to kill innocence. Now Rin didn't know that such a niche of clothes also existed, and she feels estranged from society, but then reminds herself that technologies keep on evolving. She asks Chika if there are other types of such niche clothes available, as she wants to study them. Chika decides to remain quiet. Chika insists that Rin must wear such kind of clothes often, but Rin's self-confidence is quite low. Chika reminds her that she has a really nice body. Rin is overwhelmed with emotions and decides to head home. Chika tells her to change or else she would get arrested. The following weekend Chika is waiting for Rin to come, who arrives after a while. She announces that she has changed her style a little. It can be seen that she is dressed in one of the Dare to Bear bombshell outfits to Chika's exuberance. A second-year high schooler and a member of tennis club Takuchi Shonya is really agitated as he has to go practice in the morning on his day off. A regular member was injured and is unable to participate in the event, so it was on a short notice the club added him into the team as a substitute. The coach was really worried about his poor ability, so before it was time for the district tournament, coach made a special training menu for him. The person who will be coaching him is none other than Isuhara Ayano, who is the captain of women's tennis club and an aspiring participant. Shunya notices that Ayano has a stoic attitude when it comes to practice. Before commencing, she warns him that she won't hold back, and Shunya chortles nervously. With this, she begins to play fiery shots, and once the ball literally knocks him down, he pleads with her to be easy on him. However, Ayano screams at him that he must look at the ball instead of somewhere else. She cannot believe that he has 2 weeks left before the tournament and Shunya will be a laughing stock if he doesn't improve. Shunya calls her a hardcore demon when it comes to practice. Shunya knows that many men have confessed their love to the sultry siren Ayano, but she declined them all, saying that she only wants to concentrate on the club. Shunya really though he had a chance when he joined the club, but then he realized that an ambitionless person like him is not suitable to approach her. Still it's rare that they are alone together, so Shunya tries to act cool. So Shunya hit the shot with such a zeal that it actually went inside the girls' changing room. Ayano offers to get it while Shunya grins sheepishly. A few minutes later Ayano calls out to him and tells him that the ball has flown to the top of the lockers in the girls' changing room. Shunya offers to reach to the top, however, Ayano warns him not to stare at a lot, as there are a lot personal girly things placed in the lockers. Shunya tries his best, but cannot reach out to the ball. Later Ayano is perched on Shunya's shoulders, and the latter warns him not to move his head. Meanwhile Shunya is having the time of his life, as he never thought that the time will come where the place none of the heroes were able to make it, but is now within his reach. Ayano grabs the ball and signals Shunya to put him down, but in this process her giant cushies are hit by Shunya's bone head. He gets off balance and falls, with Ayano falling over him and her juicy melons all over his face, nearly stifling him. She immediately straightens out herself, but her skirt falls off. Suddenly they hear voices of two girls coming into the locker room. When the girls enter the room, Shunya and Ayano hide themselves in a locker, their bodies pressing against each other. The girls find their phone and then make a shocking revelation. They cannot believe that Ayano ditched them for giving special training to Shunya. Another girl reveals that Ayano was the one who volunteered to train him. A flabbergasted Shunya hears the conversation while a humiliated Ayan wants to sink deeper into the ground. The girls are suspicious of why Ayano prioritized coaching Shunya over the commitment she made with them in the first place. After they leave, both Ayano and Shunya share an awkward kind of silence between them. Ayano breaks the ice by yelling at Shunya that he must not get the wrong idea, as she thought that if she took up the role of his special training coach, then even she would be able to brush up her skills. Shunya watches in awe as a usually calm Ayano has become flustered. So he actually got a glimpse of another charming side of the cool beauty. Shunya cannot believe that the day his motivation for the club will arrive so soon. 17-year-old Kijima Shu is in big trouble. 5 days ago, a new transfer student was introduced in his class whose name is Hashimoto Karen. She has just come back from America. The whole class is mesmerized by her beauty. Even Kijima thinks that Karen is super cute. The teacher instructs Karen that if she needs anything she can always Kijima to help her. After the class ends, class swarms over Karen asking about her mixed nationality, as she has beautiful eyes and complexion. Karen good-naturedly answers all questions and says that she is half Japanese from her mother's side and that her Japanese is not very good. Soon the class plans to have a party on the weekend, but the venue is still undecided. A friend jokes around that Karen can always party at Kijima's danshiryu or male dormitory. Now Karen doesn't know what danshiryu means. Kijima usually lives in a male dormitory with his friend Kajima. Karen offers that she can always come over and spend the weekend with him, and Kijima thinks that Karen is just tagging along with their joke. However, on Friday, when Kajima is off to his training camp, when Kijima gets hit by a lightning bolt, he sees Karen waiting for him, all prepared to spend the night with him. A hysterical Kijima points out to her that a danshiryu actually means dorm for men only. A humiliated Karen clasps her mouth, and she apologizes for the misunderstanding, as she thought that it would be any normal dormitory. Now Karen is really stuck because her mama is not at home and is on an onsen trip with her friends while Papa is still in America. Also, she doesn't have keys to her place. She pleads with Kijima if he can only do something about her for that night only. Now a considerate guy like Kijima cannot leave a girl on streets. The dormitory is nearly empty because of the weekend, and the landlord is also absent. If she leaves early morning, then everything would be fine. An all-American Karen hugs him in exhilaration. Karen is elated to see everything in his room, especially the tatami or floor beds. Kijima cannot keep his eyes from the bodacious babe, and when Karen tells him that she needs to change, he tells her to do it here, as in the men's bathroom. Everyone will find out about her. Karen tells him to turn around. He complies, but when Karen asks him to toss the clothes, he unintentionally turns towards her and asks whose clothes, hers or his. When he turns around, he sees an unclothed Karen and turns around in humiliation, thinking what a dunce he is. Meanwhile, Karen is fully abashed as well. His temperature soars to the extent that he gets a nosebleed. He is stunned at Karen's avid boldness and how daringly she stood with only her underclothes on. Still, when he catches the glimpse of her blood spurts out of his nose, so he urges her to go back home as her presence is really bad for his soul. Mayada Satoshi has a secret. His hobby is cross-dressing. He can't tell anyone else about this, and also no one else must find out about this. Mayada wants people to call him cute. He knows that no one would bat an eye at his plain side, but if he is in this form everyone would find him attractive. It is then she bumps into Yamada Runa. If she found out about Mayada, she would definitely spread the word. Runa spills some coffee over Mayada as well as herself. Mayada knows that he is doomed. Runa apologizes for the incident, but then tells a flushed Mayada that the latter is very cute. Mayada is glad that she didn't find out his real identity, which he has hidden from his own family as well. Mayada fakes his identity and tells Runa that he is Satoko. Runa insists that they must wash off the coffee stains from their dresses. Now Mayada needs an opportunity to escape from Runa, so he tells her that she is completely fine, however the latter is too quick for that. She immediately pulls off her blouse, revealing her luscious balloons. Mayada covers his eyes in humiliation, but Runa acts as if it were no big deal. Now Runa doesn't understand why Mayada is so embarrassed since they both are girls. To his abashment, Runa keeps on teasing him as she loves his flushed face. A clever Runa catches Mayada sneaking at her mountains, so she inquires whether she is interested. Now Mayada is literally baffled because he knows that he said something bizarre. A smart Runa will definitely find out about him. Mayada tells her that Runa is amazing because she herself is flat. Runa offers if Mayada wants to touch her luscious melons. Runa keeps on insisting that they both are girls and that her assets are very soft. A hapless Mayada shies away because no matter what he is still a guy. Runa points out that since Mayada didn't wash the coffee stains, so now they won't come out. Mayada tells her that she is heading home and will wash the stains over there. However, an adamant pesters her to do it here as this is a park and no one comes over here. When Mayada doesn't budge, Runa flings herself over Mayada and accidentally pulls over the water tap, which drenches them both immediately. Soon Runa and Mayada, dressed in policeman clothes, walk together, apologizing to each other for various reasons. Mayada is glad that he came to know about Runa's good side, as earlier he used to think of her as a sloppy girl. Also, he is relieved that Runa didn't find out he was cross-dressing. When they are exchanging their goodbyes, Runa addresses Mayada by his real name, and the latter is thoroughly shocked because all along Runa knew his real identity. A 21-year-old Nane Sakaya is all set for her first babysitting part-time job. She vows that she has to do her best. On reaching her destination, she checks on herself that she has perfectly memorized the baby manual. As she rings the bell, a frantic lady comes out apologizing for calling her at such a short notice. She tells her that she would be back by 7 in the evening. Until then, Nanase must take care of her son. Nanase obliges with great zeal. However, she gets a big shock when she finds out that the woman's son is not a baby but a grown child. The woman hides her face and leaves immediately, telling Nanase that she is leaving him in her hands. A frenzied Nanase tugs at her hair because this is now what they had discussed earlier. The child looks like he is in kindergarten and Nanase has only read baby manuals. She is confused to the core as what to do first, either play or a meal should be given. Also, she doesn't know what kind of food children his age would like. An unfortunate Nanase has already accepted the job, so has to go trough it no matter what. Still, she tries to maintain her composure in front of the child, but can feel the child's gaze on her luscious melons. Immediately, the child asks for some milk, and he is actually referring to the carton kept behind her. But our Nanase remembers that when babies crave for milk, they usually gaze at melons. However, she decides to be strong in order to comfort the child. Then she places the child's head towards her bare melons, and the child is baffled because he is not certain what Nanase is trying to do, so he demands for some milk. Nanase forces her melon to his mouth because she thinks that even a kindergartner is like a baby. She feels quite satisfied by her performance and thinks that she can be a great babysitter in near future. Later, when the child's mother returns, she is full of gratitude for her help. However, when the mother asks the child what did he do the whole day, he immediately blurts out that lots of melons. And humiliated Nanase didn't know that kindergartners, unlike babies, can speak quite well. A 17-year-old Satu Kazuya gets irritated whenever his father flirts with his newlywed wife in front of him. His father asks him to check on his stepsister Harumi, who is still asleep that morning. Satu is a little bothered by the fact that he has a sister of his age. When he reaches Harumi's room, he yells at her for not having changed yet. Harumi protests that she is unable to find her uniform. He scorns her for being really troublesome. Soon Satu can be seen collecting her undergarments and other stuff. Harumi apologizes for being a bother to him. At first, Satu was a little nervous at the fact of having a younger sister, but then he got used to taking care of her. Satu tells her that because she is like that, everyone in the class thinks that they are dating each other. He keeps on pestering her to get ready as soon as possible. When on their way to school, Satu yells at Harumi to stop clinging to him while commuting to and from school. However, poor Harumi wails that she has to cling to him as she is very slow. Satu tells her straightforwardly that he won't be taking care of her forever, so she has to become independent. He then points out that her shoelace is undone. So when Harumi kneels down, she is quite unaware that her skirt has squirmed upward, revealing her underclothes. When Satu notices this, he begins to yell again at her for being so reckless. It is then she says something very close to his ears, and Satu can nearly smell her melons. He literally jumps back, asking her to stay back as he sees some busybodies gossiping about them. He yells in sheer frustration that what will Harumi do if people understand the relationship between them. Harumi looks at him intently and then places his head between her two cushies. She assures him soothingly that she doesn't want to trouble him at all. However, Satu pulls back in aggravation, stomps his feet, and yells that this is what he wants to avoid all the time. Meanwhile, at school, Harumi's friends tease her that she has started to live with Satu since the second term, so doesn't he look at her as a woman instead of his sister? Harumi innocently replies that she feels he is like her parents or guardian. Meanwhile, Satu is regretting the way he treated Harumi that morning. It is then a friend pops up and asks whether he looks at his sister as a woman. Satu barks at him that he certainly doesn't. He dreams about Harumi's mounds of flesh and reasons that's why he cannot lower his guard. He positively doesn't know how to react when she looks at him so kindly. As the day passes, Satu becomes exhausted from the day's activities. Time is sailing so gradually that it is making him sleepy. Suddenly, he remembers that Harumi must be having pee at this time, so he peeks out of the window and can make out the huge melons even from a distance. It is then he notices something with dread and remembers that she forgot to wear her underclothes that morning. Satu begins to fidget as it would be gross if someone else noticed Harumi's wardrobe malfunction. Immediately, he asks the teacher to excuse him for the toilet. A quirky child comments that Satu always makes such lame excuses in order to meet Harumi. Without even waiting for the teacher's reply, he rushes toward Harumi and tells her that she forgot to put on her underclothes. Harumi's teacher condemns him for bunking his class. He quickly comes up with the most ridiculous excuse that he was concerned about as Harumi was running very slow. The teacher reprimands him that this is her job and not his. Harumi defends him and says that he is just worried about her, saying that she comes really close to him and is not able to withstand the heat of the moment. Satu begins to squeeze her melons wildly. The teacher gets really mad at Satu for his misconduct. Satu pleads to Harumi to explain the situation to the teacher. Harumi tries to grasp the situation and then begins that every morning she is unable to find her uniform, so Satu knows where to find them as he looks at them every morning. The busybodies get busy doing their job, and they were right. Satu did look at his sister like a woman. A delightful Harem pulls him closer and squeals that she hopes Satu will continue to be her caretaker. An agitated Satu realizes that Harem keeps misleading the people with her words. Yokota Akane is the president of the track and field club. They have a lot of new members here. It is a huge responsibility, but she will do her best. The newcomers, who are usually conscious about their appearances, comment on whether it is okay to have a girl for a president. Akane makes them train so hard that the poor guys begin to pant heavily and wonder if that wasn't too much drilling for the first day. A guy named Hayato comments that those newcomers are fools joining the club without knowing Akane. Hayato continues that there are people who got tricked by her appearance and joined the club in haste. But in actuality, she is pretty strong-willed and is often called a muscle gorilla girl. Later, Akane calls out to Hayato asking him to bring the cannonball placed near his foot. A flushed Hayato gives her the ball without looking at her and immediately goes for a break. Akane wonders why he is so cold towards her. Later, some girls ask Akane whether she was a childhood friend of Hayato. Akane denies it, saying that they just can't get separated from each other. She adds that they have been in the same class and club for a long time. A girl remarks that still both of them are really mean, and if Akane hadn't clarified, she would have thought they both are dating. Akane refutes, saying that Hayato doesn't look at her in that way, although she does have some feelings for him. She remembers that they were not like this when they first entered school. However, ever since their second year, Hayato drifted apart bit by bit. At present, Akane leaves, and her friends think of a way to trap Hayato and Akane together. Soon Yoshi has an idea and Saki agrees with it readily. So after training, when both Hayato and Akane hit the storeroom to place some boxes, someone locks up the room from outside. Hayato assures an anxious Akane that they have to wait up for the guard on duty when he is patrolling. Akane yells at him that they won't come all the way to the storeroom. A miserable Akane begins to scream for help, so Hayato consoles her. However, Akane is not appeased at all as she has to take a shower and watch her favorite TV show. Meanwhile, a surprised Hayato wonders why she is not thinking about her fretting parents. Akane cries about whether Hayato brought her phone. Hayato replies that he left it in the clubroom while they were having activities. Soon both individuals begin to bicker out of frustration, calling each other useless. Hayato calms down and tells her that they can only wait until someone comes along. An exhausted Akane plops on the bed. It is then she opens up her heart in front of him, complaining that recently he has been acting strange and has been avoiding her. A nervous Hayato doesn't look at her directly, but tells her that she is wrong. Not ready to give up so soon, a wild Akane entangles Hayato in a double arm lock and forces him to say something. Hayato gives up and reveals that he has started to avoid her because she has become more ladylike. Akane is certain that Hayato is joking, but when her chortle is answered with a long prevailing silence, she asks gravely about when did it all start. Hayato answers at the beginning of the second year. Akane ponders that's about the same time when she felt that strange feeling. Hayato continues that he used to think that she was the same Akane who grew up beside him like a family, but then somehow it kind of felt awkward. A stunned Akane didn't know Hayato looked at her like that. Her expression becomes lewd, and then she says that if it is Hayato, then she doesn't mind him looking at her completely. With this, she lifts up her blouse, revealing an enormous decked-up set, and allows Hayato to touch them. Hayato tells her to stop joking around with him. When he catches her grave expression, he draws out his hand and pulls down her blouse, covering her twins completely. He remarks that Akane's hairstyle looks womanly and attractive, and she must never reveal her assets so easily to others. The next day at the training, Hayato wonders whether Akane still hated her for the previous day. It is then Hayato appears wearing a foxy hairstyle and urges him to practice. A 13-year-old Rina has a problem, and his older sister Himari keeps on criticizing him on different occasions. Once she tells him not to use his mobile phone while walking. When Rina is about to confront her for being annoying, he notices that she isn't wearing underclothes. She answers that this is because she forgot to put it on after their swimming class at school that day. Himari tells him to accompany her to the park's toilet to help her put them on. Rina thinks that Himari should keep the personal talk to herself, and she mustn't say those things in front of a guy. Although Himari is his elder sister, he is troubled by the excess skinship they share. She leaves no opportunity to get closer to him. This is when Rina gets irritated, and he asks her to leave him alone as he can take care of himself. A concerned Himari tells him that she cannot leave him as she would be worried, plus he is a foot shorter than she is. With this, she naughtily places his head in the valley of her two mountains and orders him to listen to whatever she is saying. A hapless Rina wants to get taller as soon as possible, so he tries to do all kinds of exercises that can accelerate his growth. Soon, when Himari appears in front of Pantless, Rina reprimands her to be a little decent. Himari protests that she is wearing a longer shirt that belongs to their father. Out of the blue, Himari takes a whiff of his shirt and exclaims that the shirt smells only of him. Rina asks her what she needs this time. In turn, Himari asks whether something is bothering him. When Rina refrains from telling her, she gets dangerously close to him and keeps on pestering him that he must not hide anything from her, as his elder sister Himari will ease all his worries. She goes to great lengths by saying that if he won't tell, then she will cry buckets. A worried Rina gives up and tells her not to cry as her eyes would swell. Himari guesses that Rina is worried about her height, and she actually hit the target. She assures him that he looks very cute in his short stature. A vexed Rina retorts that this is the reason he wanted to remain quiet, because he knew what her answer would have been. Himari's advisory seminar on growth begins when she advises Rina to sleep well, as the kids who sleep better grow taller. In a jiff, she puts him into the bed and plops on his side, making her comfortable. She asks while cuddling him tightly whether she should sing a nursery rhyme to him. An agitated Rina reminds her that despite being siblings, they are also a man and a woman. In no time, Himari dozes off, only to be awakened by Rina's violent jolts who tell her to sleep in her own room. But before that, Himari tucks him into the bed and covers him with a spread. As soon as she lifts up the blanket, accidentally she lifts up her nightshirt, exposing her massive twins that are spotted by Rina as well. A humiliated Himari immediately leaves the room, shutting the door with a slam behind her. In the morning, Himari greets an exhausted Rina with a long, sultry stretch, and Rina shook his head as if to say that it doesn't seem like his problem will be solved anytime soon. Kuhai is a university student since spring, and this is his first part-time job at a bookstore. He feels that his job is tough since he has a lot of stuff to memorize. Suddenly, a sweet voice coos that he is still green, while the work is a piece of cake for her. The voice belongs to Kuhai's senpai at work, and her name is Hinata. Hinata is younger than Kuhai, as she is a first-year student at a high school. Kuhai finds her very cute. It is then Hinata loses her balance while fixing the books on the upper racks and falls down. Kuhai becomes concerned, but Hinata tells him not to treat her like she is younger than him. Kuhai feels that since she is his first senpai, it gets a little complicated on how to treat her. Hinata comments that she just showed a terrible side of her, but the important thing is to learn step by step. The most prominent thing about Hinata is that she is very short but very much decked up, so Kuhai is unable to keep his eyes off her. Even when she is giving him important tips, his mind wanders away, lingering on her body. So when Hinata tries to alert him, a flushed Kuhai replies that he is able to remember everything since her way of teaching is awesome. Next, Hinata decides to teach him about the display section, and for that, she is again climbing up the ladder. Kuhai decides to watch over her as she is still doing a dangerous job. As predicted, her foot slips, she stumbles over and flies toward Kuhai. Now Kuhai is perplexed that if he uses his hands, then those will touch her melons. It is then an idea strikes her. He decides to use his face instead to grab her, but his head gets stuck between those enormous mounds. A flabbergasted Hinata composes herself and reasons that she saw a bug on the book, that's why she got surprised and tripped. She assures Kuhai that it's not like she is really scared of them. But Kuhai can see droplets of sweat appearing on her forehead. Kuhai gives a very simple solution. If she turns over the book to its back cover, then she won't be able to see the bug. She immediately follows his instructions and jumps with delight as she manages to solve her problem. But then she suddenly remembers that here she is a senpai and not some frivolous high schooler in the store, so she lectures him that he needs to use the proper formal speech towards his senpai. A humiliated Kuhai apologizes. Next, when someone calls, Kuhai receives it and asks the caller to wait. This is when Hinata nearly snatches the phone and then blabbers something about completion theory, construction, etc. She asks the caller to hold on for a minute. It is then a little kid points out how Hinata is bowing bizarrely every minute. Poor Kuhai decides to keep his eyes off her for many reasons. Kuhai announces whether she wants to swap with him. In the end, they complete the whole task and Kuhai thanks him for an amazing job. She announces that Kuhai deserves an award for his performance. She tries to pet his head, but since she is short, so she has to stoop over and pet him. Kuhai feels a very strong stimulation in this position. Later, he asks the manager to guide him where to place certain books. Kuhai can feel the gaze of an abandoned puppy from behind him. The manager's voice brings him back to the world and guides him about the correct location of the books. Kuhai explains to Hinata about the book's location, and when Hinata begins to cry while hugging a book too tightly, Kuhai is certain Hinata knows that as well and is very happy that she tried to tell him that. Soon a customer arrives and asks for a book from Kuhai. Kuhai decides to help him look for the book and Hinata's facial expression suggests Kuhai had already lost his marbles. However, a very confident Kuhai tells her that she should leave it up to him. The customer asks about a very peculiar book related to melons and shapely bodies. Now Hinata immediately recognizes what the customer is asking for, but Kuhai insists that he would be searching for that customer. A frantic Hinata pleads with Kuhai to leave it to her and treat it as if she has overheard his conversation. Now Kuhai doesn't want to rely on her, but when she insists a lot, he gives in. Immediately an electrified Hinata searches the book like a bot and Kuhai feels like a parent who just let their daughter go on her very first errand. After much toil, she manages to find the required book and hands it over to Kuhai. Kuhai accepts it with gratitude, but then skids and the book slips out of his hand. It lands neatly on Hinata's racked twins with the book's cover openly displaying its raunchy contents. In the end, a dejected Hinata comments that she wasn't able to do anything senpai-like and is a complete failure. However, Kuhai corrects her that senpai Hinata can take initiatives, something he is unable to do. In fact, he feels that he has been useless the whole day. Hinata gives a mischievous smirk and declares that she is his senpai after all, and a mesmerized Kuhai cannot stop worrying about her.